Hi Pankaj.
Hey, Jerome.
So tell us a little about you.
Yeah, so I'm a part of investments team at Prime. I look at fintech, health tech, AI infra and tooling space, among other things, with the fund for a little over a year back. And yeah, love talking to the founders and glad to be doing that on a day-to-day basis.
Nice. So what excites you to be at Prime?
Stage focus is sort of one key criteria. When I decided to move into this career, this space, I was very clear that I want to focus on seed stage investing, and our focus and discipline to stick to that, as has been I kind of see it, I experienced it firsthand since I joined the fund. Apart from that, general first principles approach to look at opportunities to evaluate companies. That has been quite amazing as well. I have learned a lot. Many of the sectors that I spoke about, I look at. It did not work in those, right? So but through my work here, I was able to kind of meet interesting founders building in that space, understand various problems, universal problems rather, that many of these sectors kind of struggle with, and how can tech be leveraged to solve those massive large problems, has been the key highlights of my time here.
So on a given day, how many founders you talk to?
So in a given week, I would say, in a good week, I end up talking to about 10 to 12 companies, but yeah, average would be anywhere from 6 to 8. Yeah, it depends really on a lot of other factors, but yeah, I mean, if I'm able to speak to, actually I'll put it this way, right? If I'm able to speak to a couple of interesting companies and founders, it makes the whole week kind of worthwhile, right? So no point looking at the top line numbers really, but how many interesting conversations are you able to kind of put yourself in the middle of is kind of is what I'm optimizing for essentially when I plan my week.
And when you say interesting, like you did say that, how do you define an interesting company?
So look, really, interesting means different thing for different companies. At the end of the day, we are a tech mandated VC, right? So how these founders are using tech to solve, the specific problem, at least I get very excited, trying to understand it deeply. I've been spending a lot more time in AI infra and tooling, which is a emerging space, not just in India, but even globally. And seeing novel ways in which first founders are kind of arriving at a problem worth solving for, and then they're going about solving that, or at least having like a hypothesis on what how can that be solved, is what I would define as interesting. And generally, I kind of get very excited hearing about user problems at a very, very deep level, right? And I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point, and I can kind of explain at that time in detail. But some of the most interesting first meetings that I've had the privilege to be part of has kind of been about spending a lot more time hearing from founders, what unique or non-obvious market or user insights they've identified, right? Which has kind of given them the conviction to build in the space, right? Because most of the founders are kind of, highly accomplished, good pedigree folks, and there's an opportunity cost associated with them starting up, right? So I'm always on the lookout for, what was that inflection point that got you to, maybe, let's say, leave a cushy job that you were doing in the past life, or another kind of high paying offer that you had, but you decided to kind of move on from that and start up, right? So trying to understand at a very deep level, what was their motivation, and the conviction that got them here is usually a pattern, or that I see in good conversations. Yeah.
Got it. So you did speak about first meetings, right? So what are these first meetings, and what happens in this first meeting with a potential founder?
Got it. So and everybody has a different approach to it. But what is I would say common is that the goal of a first meeting for the founder and VC alike, right? It's not just it's specific to founder, is to get to the second meeting, right? And of course, I like to review the deck, end to end ahead of the first meeting, right? So there is a broad understanding about founder backgrounds, the market you are after. In most cases, what does your specific product look like, right, to cater to that market and stuff like that, right? And if I kind of summarize or categorize my most interesting first meetings, there is a very, kind of a common pattern that emerges there, right? Which is, I get excited about two things usually, right, to graduate into the next meeting. First is that market opportunity is huge. And second, that there is a very obvious founder market fit, right? And, there is like a, unique kind of a position that the founder is in to build in the space, right? Now let's unpack it a little bit. Two key patterns that I am looking to build conviction on in the first meeting is market opportunity, and is it humongous and huge? And second is founder market fit, right? What is the right to win of that particular founder to build in that space, right? That ideally I would like more founders to do, right? In the meeting, right? Not that they've kind of not done it in preparation of that meeting or in preparation to kind of starting up. But if more founders can surface it during the first meeting, that would be, I would like that a lot, right? And that is, discussing in depth the market and the user insights that have excited them to start up in the space, right? Founder market fit can be one could be, founder comes from the same domain, has spent many years working in that domain, and has kind of realized the inherent problems that exist and has come up with a novel way to solve those problems, right? So that's kind of an obvious founder market fit. And, I think many kind of sectors, for example, fintech, health, etc., I feel benefit from that. And as I touched upon AI and AI infra and tooling, which is an emerging space, right? There's not a lot of domain. Of course, you can be on the other side, kind of on the, being a developer or an engineer kind of building in the space, right? But what kind of products are kind of enabling rapid AI adoption and stuff like that? Nobody knows, right? It's so new, right? And things are changing so dynamically. The one way to kind of get confidence first among, the founders themselves, and then kind of share it, let's say, with the investor partners, is to share their process of arriving at the problem, right? Coincidentally, I spoke to a very interesting company, a couple of weeks back, spending a lot of time with them. But in the first meeting, after the first 5 minutes of intros and stuff like that, next 40 minutes, we just spoke about how they landed at a problem that they're trying to solve. The founder had taken a very interesting approach, right? He had gone in with a particular hypothesis and spoke to 50 customers, right? And these were not like retail. It was not a retail product for people like you and I, but it was kind of an enterprise enterprise product helping them adopt AI faster, right? And what they realized when they spoke to during the chats with those 50 customers is that, while the broad hypothesis area was the same, but there was a much bigger problem that they kind of stumbled upon and decided to build in that space. Right? So 40 minutes we just spent talking about, what was the hypothesis, how did you kind of evaluate it, what was aligning well with it, what were the insights or the problem statements that you heard that kind of got you to pivot, right? And it was like probably one of the most insightful conversations that I remember from the recent past, right? But I would like to see more founders do that. It's not like, by the way, that they don't do that work, right? But many of the founders might, for some reason, think that it's not worth sharing, with a potential investor. And I like to say that at seed stage, there's not a lot of data that you have to kind of look upon. At the end of the day, we're backing two things, right? One is the market, one is the founder. And we actually look for such points of, I would say, conviction that, it is the right market opportunity and the right team to back. And this is kind of one of the ways. I'm sure there are other ways. Everybody, as I said, has a different kind of framework or algorithm to go about it. Right, but I like to spend a lot more time just addressing this core question, right? And a similar thing I would say with respect to market opportunity also, right? Sure, there are some kind of obvious markets, for example, lending in India, etc. In theory, they are kind of huge from the get-go, right? But as certain non-obvious markets, let's say if it's found, as founders you're building in, it's also helpful to understand why you think is a large market, right? It might not be intuitive to me, right? But of course, if you are kind of decided to build in that space, you're of course seeing a huge opportunity, right? And walk me through that thinking. Why do you think so, right? And I like to spend most of my time, as I said, trying to get a sense of these two aspects. And if it stands out clearly, very high chances that the second meeting will happen, and we kind of take it from there. But if for some reason I don't get the conviction that market is not huge, and founder is not able to walk me through the thinking as to why is it huge, or there are no kind of differentiated insights, right? Everything kind of that is emerging for them to do is kind of done in the past and stuff like that. Very unless something changes, and again, there's no hard and fast rule, but I'm certain patterns that emerge. I'm just kind of sharing that. But yeah, if you're a founder, spend a lot more time talking about your process of starting up, why that market, why that problem, why that approach to solve that problem specifically. Those are some of my best conversations.
Awesome. And you did speak about large market. Is there a number to it?
Look, there is no kind of hard and fast number, really. Of course, I touched upon lending, in our conversation, and lending in India is a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. Doesn't matter what cut, what segment, etc. that you kind of look at. And as I said, AI infra and tooling is an emerging space. So in theory, it's going to be a multi-billion-dollar market, but nobody can really put a number to it, right? So I would not like to kind of anchor ourselves around a particular number, but see, if the founder is starting up, or if we as investors are coming in, both of us are setting a goal to build a large, meaningful company in the space, right? Which could, let's say, become a market leader, go IPO at some stage, and so on and so forth, right? So working backwards from there is helpful, right? For example, in lending, for example, right? Are you operating in a market that you can build a couple of $1 billion of loan book, right? If not, is it worth kind of building in this space? Frankly, would be my question.
Well, when you were speaking, I had this question. How do you validate market size, right? Like as a VC.
Yeah.
For example, the founder will come and say, it is a $2 billion market opportunity. But
Yeah.
how does validation research look like?
Got it. So here also, right? So there's a certain obvious markets where, I would say enough primary data from regulators and, think tanks and so on and so forth is available. Of course, we tie that up with work of our own, reach out to industry experts, do some on-ground research and so on and so forth. Lending, for example, would be one of that scenario, right? Where, there is like enough formal data that kind of highlights the let's say credit gaps in the country, right? But yeah, at a overall level, right? Given that we're sector agnostic, we make investments in other sectors as well. It might not be that obvious in many cases, right? And I would like to say to the founders that it's an equal amount of art and science, right? Of course, there's like a top-down view which you could, let's say, pick up from some of these reports and stuff like that. But there is also like a bottom-up view, right? Which we kind of try to assess by kind of filtering the market opportunity at a segment level, could be a geographic implication of it, and so on and so forth, and build bottom up, right? So if your top down and bottom up are broadly sort of converging, again, not to say ki, they are like, equal, but broadly converging, then, you're able to kind of get the conviction that, okay, there is a meaningful market here. And, of course, as I said, given the founders are kind of doing or need to do that a lot more comprehensively, I like to understand their process as well, right? What do they say is their market opportunity, right? That kind of also highlights the, their thinking process and how do they think their product will, let's say, and like day one, they're not going to be able to cater to that market opportunity, right? But how will the product and the business evolve over many years to be able to start addressing that market, right? So I would say the one-line summary is equal amount of art and science in most of the cases, but that's where I would say conviction building and judgment comes into the picture in the profession.
Final question. Are there like maybe say top 3 sources in the sector agnostic which are useful for founders to always kind of go pick numbers, research, etc.
Yeah.
Sources in India?
Like really depends, right? So if you're doing, let's say, fintech and that to specifically lending, right? I would say, even RBI, most of the listed entities, they kind of have in their quarterly earnings, annual earnings reports, annual reports have like the, industry and market trends, right? That is I would say reliable source to kind of do that, right? And I would broadly say in fintech, pretty much for any subsector, you would find reliable reports from either listed entities or regulators. Many of these consulting firms, also do a very reasonable job of putting together the analysis, right? But I would kind of underline it with the fact that it can be a starting point, right? Of course, the goal of them to put out these reports is completely different as opposed to you as founders trying to build in the space, right? But it's a good starting point. You definitely need to do your own work, right? As I said, like top down, bottom up, right? Which kind of helps you narrow down, the problem or the segment, etc., that you want to go after. But these are good starting points, right? Many of the emerging sectors, right? I've not seen, for example, a lot of interesting stuff on AI infra and tooling come out of India. It might be out there, by the way, like I don't know, but most of the interesting stuff that I have kind of read, referred around, heard from people who referred it to me has been around, Bay Area kind of investors and stuff like that. And even we as Prime roll out our thesis, right, which could be like a broad commentary on areas, subsectors, etc., that we are excited about. But all these founders should take it as a good starting point and kind of do their own groundwork to do their own analysis in whatever aspect of these sectors they're building in.
Got it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.